this is Victoria. It's been a while since I made a video, so I thought I'd make a video today and do a book review of this book, Skinny Bitch Bun in the Oven. If you don't know, I'm 15.5 weeks pregnant. Could be any date really, but we'll say 15.5 weeks because that's what the internet told me. And yeah, so I've been looking. I mean, even though I've already had one vegan pregnancy with my first child, Indigo, and I was so confident during that pregnancy, and I just took it all for granted that I was healthy and that I was gonna give my child everything that I needed. And you know, I drank lots of smoothies and juices during my pregnancy, and I had a clean diet, and he's very healthy, he's very fit, he's very muscular. You know, he's quite advanced for his age, both mentally and physically. You know, he looks like a little boy rather than a child, and there's other kids his age that they're still look kind of like toddlers, whereas he's, even for quite a long time now, looked like a boy. He's very strong and very, very physically fit and active. So I have no reason to be doubtful of the vegan diet, but for some reason, since I've been pregnant, I've kind of been doubting myself, just wanting a bit more certainty that having a vegan pregnancy was the right thing to do, wanting to read information and studies which said, okay, this is the exact nutrition that you need to make sure you have a healthy child. So I have been questioning myself a lot about my nutrition choices, and I went on Amazon to look up vegan pregnancy books. And I was actually quite shocked to find that there wasn't that many. There's about 4 or 5 vegan pregnancy books, and that's it. That really is it. I mean, there's quite a lot of vegetarian pregnancy books, but not that many vegan. So anyway, this is one I got, Skinny Bitch Bun in the Oven. And when it first arrived, I kind of judged it, I've got to be honest. I looked at it and I thought, well, I'm not going to learn much from this. This is a book telling you all the reasons why not to eat meat and dairy. And it's kind of for the masses, telling you about the conditions in the factory farms. But I read it anyway, and what I've got to say is I absolutely loved it. I really enjoyed the book. It's by 2 women, Rory Friedman and Kim Barnewin. I've never read the first book, by the way, but I've heard that's really good too. But I really loved the writing style. And they're kind of quirky, and you can kind of imagine in real life they'd be a little bit sarcastic and a little bit, yeah, so I like the women. I love the style that they wrote in. And even though I've watched movies like Earthlings and I've read about the conditions in factory farms before, I don't think anything has affected me as much as this book has. And I mean, really, if I even ever considered eating meat or dairy again, I definitely wouldn't after reading this book. It kind of, they talk about the conditions that the animals are in, but then they also talk about, you know, for people who don't care about animals, they talk about from a health perspective. Like they talk about, one of the things they mention is this Honey's disease, or Yoni's disease, maybe that's how it's pronounced, that cows get, where basically they've got this uncontrollable diarrhea. And because in factory farms, it's not that the farmer's there milking the cow, but they've actually, you know, the cows are attached to these metal milkers, and they're given loads of antibiotics to make, and loads of, what's it called, false hormones, to make them produce significantly a lot more milk than they would normally produce. So because they're milked and milked and milked and milked by these metal milkers. And what happens when they've got this Honey's disease is they've got this uncontrollable diarrhea, and the poop goes everywhere, even onto the cow's udders. And because there's like loads of cows all lined up, these farmers aren't going around making sure that every single cow is spotlessly clean. No, sometimes the poop goes onto the udders, it goes into the milk, and you know, I think the FDA, is that who regulates stuff in America, has allowed this, obviously because everything's pasteurized. But literally, people who are drinking milk are drinking the poop, plus all the false hormones, plus the antibiotics that are given to the cows to try and keep them from keeling over. And plus, she talks about how when we eat food that's produced agriculturally, there's a regulations on the amounts of pesticides that are allowed to be put on that food. But food produced for animals to eat doesn't have the same restrictions and regulations. Plus, when we get our food, it's washed. So, you know, some of the pesticide residues comes off. But for animals, they put loads more pesticides on these different plants. Plus, it's not washed before those animals take in that food. So basically, if people who are eating meat, you know, or even drinking that milk, what's coming out, you know, that's accumulated toxins that have built up in those cows' bodies, and then people are taking those toxins in. So that's one of the things that she talks about. So I mean, they go on, and it really makes you not want to eat meat or dairy again. They do talk about a lot about the nutrition that you need, which is really good. They go into DHA, EPA, talk about different vitamins and minerals to be aware of, making sure that you get enough of to have a healthy child. And they also talk about, which is something that's important for me, I read recently a study that was done in 1999 in the UK, which said that vegetarian mothers were 5 times more likely to have a male son that had hypospadias disease than non-vegetarian mothers. Now, it was done on vegetarians, not vegans, and for myself, in my own lifestyle, I find that I get a lot more nutrition since I became vegan than vegetarian, and I'll go into that in a minute. But anyway, there was what they say in this book is that there was studies done since then, and they looked into it, and there's been studies done since then, and they haven't been able to replicate the same results. So it's possible that maybe back in that study in 1999, it was only a very small amount of people in the case study, and it's quite possible that those women that they were tested back in those days, vegetarians didn't have as much education on nutrition as they do today. I mean, these days we've all got the internet, and there's just so much nutrition information out there that we're all a lot more educated than we would have been back in the 90s. And so it probably was a disease of malnutrition rather than a disease connected to veganism or vegetarianism. So that's one of the things that they say. And from what other studies that I've read on the internet, I think it was, I've read other people who said, look, I wasn't a vegetarian, but I was malnutritioned and my son was born with this disease. So it was kind of, you know, it's important to look into these things because there is a lot of negative media propaganda put out about vegans, especially vegan pregnancy, by even if you look at like the Western Price Foundation, that they do spout some really nasty things about vegans and vegan pregnancy, and you know, they say if you have a vegan child, you're risking your child getting brain damage, basically. I think that's what Sally Fallon says. And it's quite scary for a lot of vegan mothers who do question themselves, and they do want to have a healthy child. They care about their child, of course. So, you know, and we do need to back up our choices with information to be sure that we're making the right decisions. One thing that this book is really good at, it talks about, it's not necessarily just malnutrition which causes children to have illnesses when they're born, but sometimes it can be over-toxicity from the mother taking too many pharmaceuticals, or from the mother, you know, from putting too many lotions, potions and nasty chemicals on our skin. I mean, and she talks about some of the different products and some of the different chemicals in those products and what to look for and what to avoid. So that's really good. In total, I found this book was very informative, and I really enjoyed it, so I wanted to give it the thumbs up from me. But before I go, I wanted to talk about how I mentioned before that I was previously more malnutritioned on a vegan diet than on a vegetarian diet, than on a vegan diet. Basically, I went vegetarian in my very early 20s. I think I was 20 years old, 2001, and I'm not sure if it was before I went vegetarian or just after I went vegetarian, but it was a summer. And it was very hot, and I put a couple of ice cubes in my glass of water, and then I found, wow, I really enjoy crunching on those ice cubes. And then I went back to the freezer and I put 3 ice cubes in the glass of water, and then after that water was finished, I filled the glass full of ice and just put a little bit of water in. And what happened was I became addicted to crunching ice, and it's actually a disease called pica, which is caused by a mineral deficiency. It can be a deficiency of iron, it can be caused by anemia, or a B vitamin deficiency. And shortly after that I developed this line. It was like a split right down my lip, and it looked awful. Every time I looked in the mirror I thought, oh God, I look like a witch. But it took about 6 months and it never healed, and I put all these different types of creams on my skin to try and heal this. And I remember when I first met Matthew, he said, Victoria, you've got to stop crunching on ice. It's really annoying and it can't be good for your internal organs, putting all that cold ice into your body. But I was addicted to it. But I kept trying to stop doing it when I was with Matthew, because I knew it really annoyed him, and you know, he was so health conscious. And but then when I became, so I did at times kind of quit it, and then sometimes just something had happened and I'd go to the freezer and put loads of ice cubes in a glass, and I'd sit on the floor in the kitchen and I'd be crunching away at the ice. But after I became vegan, what happened is I no longer craved ice. In fact, right now I can't even, if I go order a glass of water out and it comes with ice cubes, I actually have to take the ice cubes out of my glass, because I don't want to put extremely cold liquids into my body anymore. So I definitely don't crave that anymore. My lip hasn't split once since I became vegan. So I feel definitely that something must have happened, maybe because I used to eat a lot of dairy and cheese before I became vegan, and maybe that was coating my insides and stopping me from getting the other vitamins and minerals in my food. And I think it's kind of sad that a lot of vegans, when they become pregnant, they choose to stop being vegan, and sometimes if they decide, okay, I'm not going to eat meat because they've got some ethical reasons, but then they decide, okay, I'm going to eat eggs and I'm going to eat dairy and I'm going to eat cheese, and it's the dairy and the cheese which coats the intestines and stops you from, absorbing the vitamins and minerals from the other food. So, necessarily people are probably healthier on a vegan diet than a vegetarian diet. That was just my experience. I don't know what other people experience. I mean, let me know what you think. So that's today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Review of Skinny Bitch Bun in the oven. I would give it 5 stars. I enjoyed it. I got a lot from it, even though I did judge it initially. Okay, thanks for watching today, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye.